the sport of kings, better than diamond rings. That's why we're here to sing. Football, 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 football.
Hello everybody, it is time now for my Pac-12 North preview as we continue with college football conference previews. Pac-12, of course, the last 3 seasons, it's been Oregon's baby. The Ducks trying to win 4 Pac-12 titles in a row. We'll talk about the Ducks a little bit later. But let's first, in the North Division, talk about a team that, just like Oregon, was successful in 2011. That was the Stanford Cardinal. And boy, what a year they had under first-year head coach David Shaw, as Shaw led the Cardinal to an 11-2 record, and if their place kicker hadn't choked against Oklahoma State in the Fiesta Bowl, Stanford would have had a 12-1 mark. Running back Stephon Taylor, he's going to be a huge bright spot for Stanford because the last 2 seasons he's gained over 1,000 yards. So the guy features quickness, he features toughness, he features speed. Taylor should be one to watch for in 2012. And in the future, how about Barry Sanders Jr.? That's right, the son of the legend Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders Jr. decided to go to Stanford rather than his dad's alma mater at Oklahoma State. Not so much this year, but in future seasons, look for Barry Sanders to get some playing time for the Cardinal. Now, if you're looking at Stanford as far as other areas go, of course, Andrew Luck. That's going to be a huge omission for the Cardinal. He's, of course, first-round overall pick in this past year's NFL draft for the Indianapolis Colts. So Brett Nottingham has a pressure-cooking position to play at quarterback. A lot of eyes are going to be on him. But at least the tight end position is solidified for Stanford. Levine Toilolo. This dude is 6 feet 8 inches tall, and he is back for Stanford. No question a threat, especially in goal line situations. So look for Toilolo to have a really good year. Defensively, maybe the best set of linebackers you'll find in the country with Chase Thomas back and Shane Scove at the other linebacking position. But Scove last season was limited because of a knee injury, plus Scove has some off-the-field issues to deal with. The decision as far as if or how many games he's going to be suspended because of an off-season DUI, that has yet to be released. So we'll have to play the waiting game on that. For Stanford, last year their defensive backfield was a bit of a disappointment. In their 3 toughest games, which were against USC, Oregon, and Oklahoma State, the secondary was terrible. So really watch for that area. The schedule for the Cardinal, well, it's going to feature the Oregon Ducks in Eugene. That won't be easy, plus a September game against USC. So the Cardinal don't have a whole lot of time to get prepared from that non-conference schedule in order to get ready for the Trojans. Stanford, of course, also has to go to Notre Dame. 6 of the last 7 games for Stanford are going to be on the road, so they have to get off to a good start. I think it'll be a good year for Stanford, 8 or 9 wins, but no better than that. And I think they'll probably finish 2nd or 3rd in the North. Now, the Washington Huskies, they no question are a team that's been on the rise. Remember 4 years ago they had the perfect season? That's right, they didn't win a single game in 2008. 0-12 that year. But you know what? 0-12, that 2008 season has to seem like light years away. Steve Sarkisian has done a remarkable job turning that program around. And other than Matt Barkley, Keith Price of Washington's the best quarterback in the Pac-12 period. Price had 33 TDs last season. He's back. But something that really stinks for Washington is the fact that Chris Polk left early, the terrific running back. So now Jesse Collier occupies those big shoes that Polk filled last season in the backfield. Talk about tall tight ends. We mentioned earlier about Toilolo for Stanford. How about Austin Safarian Jenkins? He is tall as well. He's no shorty. 6 feet 6 inches tall. A lot of people think he's going to be a All-American prospect this year for the Huskies. 3 linemen also returned for Washington. However, they will not return Colin Porter, who had to cut his career short because of severe arthritis in both shoulders. So that's a bit of a setback for Washington, even though they do return 3 linemen. On the defensive side, Sean Parker returns for the Huskies at safety, and the defensive ends should be solid with Josh Shirley as well as Jamora as well. So if you're looking at defensive ends, Washington should be able to get pressure on the QB. And defensive back Shaq Thompson, number 1 defensive back in the country last year in high school. He had a lot of colleges to pick from, as you can imagine, chose Washington, and he should play right away. For the Huskies, the schedule is going to be brutal. Look for the first 6 games. They play at LSU, they play Stanford, they play USC, they play Oregon. If Washington gets through the first half of that schedule at 3-3 or better, second half of the year I think looks very promising because it is not nearly as stacked as the first half, thank goodness. Washington will have a shot at 7 or 8 wins, but I think they're probably a middle-of-the-pack team in the Pac-12 North, 3rd or 4th place. The Cal Golden Bears, I think this will be an improved season for them. Zach Maynard returns at quarterback for Jeff Tedford's squad, and Keenan Allen is one of the best wide receivers in the country. He is back. And the guy that probably doesn't get enough mention for the Golden Bears is their running back. That is Easy Sofeli, whom last season had over 1,300 yards rushing. And the one thing that will help Cal is if they can get other wide receiver support to help out Keenan Allen. One guy to watch out for is Bryce Treggs. You might remember his father, Brian Treggs, who played for Cal from that same position the previous generation back in the early 90s. Now, for California, they're going to have to cut down on turnovers. This was one area, one big reason why they didn't win as many games as I thought they should have. So we're going to see how Cal does. They return the majority of their offensive linemen as well. But they do lose their best defensive player, the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, in Michael Hendricks. So they have to replace him. Mark Anthony does return in his cornerback spot. So Cal does have some nice pieces back. And if you look at the schedule for California, really tell you the truth, they got a big break as far as the North, hosting Oregon, Stanford, as well as Washington. So that will no question help Cal, but probably the first 4 games are looking at a 2-2 record at best because you got to play at Ohio State and at USC both in the month of September. So that's going to be pretty rough for Cal, but don't be surprised if they finish 3rd in the North Division. Well, welcome to Pullman, Mike Leach. You're going to bring a lot of fun with your Texas Tech style offense. Yes, the Cougars are going to be running the spread, so folks in Pullman, buy your season tickets now because you're going to see a fun offense. Jeff Toole is back at QB for Washington State, and Toole better be ready too because he's going to be throwing the ball quite a bit. Not only is the head coach new for Washington State in Mike Leach, the entire coaching staff is new in Pullman. One thing that will help too for Washington State, their best wide receiver is back in Marquise Wilson. Should have a nice year and should benefit from this style offense. But the offensive line last year was limited, especially in depth, and that meant that Toole didn't have a whole lot of time to throw. So hopefully if you're a Washington State fan, offensive line gets better. On the defensive side for the Cougars, Mike Bresky will bring a very, what you would call, risky type defense. They're going to be blitzing from all sides. They're going to switch from the 4-3 to the 3-4. So look for Washington State to take some chances on the defensive side. That might pay off well at first, but of course Pac-12 offenses are going to be able to figure Washington State out. So I do think it's going to be a bit of a learning season for Washington State on the defensive side. I look for their defense to give up a lot of points, but their offense should be entertaining. Knowing Mike Leach, he was entertaining at Texas Tech. I think the same will hold true at Washington State, and they're going to have a shot at a 5 or 6 overall winning season. And then Oregon State last year completely stunk. Last season, averaging just 21 points a game. In the Pac-12, that's pathetic. Sean Mannion does return at QB for the boys from Corvallis, but last season, their rushing attack was horrific, averaging about a net total of 50 yards per game. That's not going to cut the mustard. Last season, they only won 3 ball games. On the defensive side, they do return 8 starters, but last season, just like Oregon State struggled with the run, they also struggled trying to stop it. So Oregon State, let's face it, Cal is a team that returns a lot of key players. Washington State, with Mike Leach, that's a squad that's going to improve. Washington returns a lot of key players. Stanford, they're going to be maybe a little down, but just a little down. And, of course, Oregon, they're the kings of the North. So for Oregon State, I find it hard to believe that they are going to finish out of the cellar in this division. And, ladies and gentlemen, that leads me to the Oregon Ducks, the 3-time defending Pac-12 champions. And, once again, they'll be loaded. 13 starters are back, 6 of them on the offensive side. This offense for Oregon last year was incredible, and that's putting it mildly. 46 points a game is what they averaged in 2011. And normally when you lose your starting quarterback and your leading running back, that's a sign of trouble. I don't think that's going to be the case at all for the Ducks. Brian Bennett now takes over for Darren Thomas, who surprised me by leaving a year early to go to the NFL. A lot of people were surprised by that because I didn't think he was quite ready for that jump to the pros yet. But Brian Bennett now occupies signal caller at Oregon. At the running back position, Kenyon Barner is an absolute burner. He's a threat running the ball and also returning kicks. We saw both of that last season. Should bring more of that this year, along with the ever-dangerous DeAnthony Thomas. So even though you hate to lose LaMichael James, I think that running game for Oregon is going to be just fine because speed kills, and Oregon has a bunch of it on both sides of the ball. Now, speaking of D, 7 starters are back, including the linebacker Michael Clay, defensive end Deion Jordan, and free safety, one of the best safeties in the country, in John Boyett. I know Mike Bellotti did a lot of terrific things when he was head coach at Oregon. He brought them to national prominence. But all Chip Kelly has done as head coach at Oregon since he took over for Bellotti is take a already terrific program and basically inflated them into a powerhouse, a big-time powerhouse, with 2 years ago falling just shy of winning a national championship, losing at the gun to Auburn. Last season, 12-2, another Pac-12 championship, and a Rose Bowl win over Wisconsin. The non-league schedule does not feature LSU. In fact, nobody even close to LSU's caliber is on the non-conference slate for Oregon. So, to me, it comes down to 2 games. November 3rd in Los Angeles against USC. And, of course, we'll talk more about the Trojans on my next show when I preview the Pac-12 South. That game is going to be enormous. Second game will be the Pac-12 championship game. Whoever wins that November 3rd showdown, in my opinion, is going to host the Pac-12 championship game. So you're looking at 2 potential wars between the Ducks and the Trojans on November 3rd and then in early December somewhere. Last season, those 2 teams played an epic game with USC winning by a field goal. I look for both of those games this year, the Pac-12 championship and, of course, the November 3rd game, to be thrillers. For Oregon, if they can get past USC, then they are looking very primed, not only at a Pac-12 championship, but maybe that national championship that eluded them just a couple of years ago. I don't know if Oregon's going to win the whole thing, but they definitely have the talent to get there. So I look for Oregon to win the Pac-12 North. They're clearly the best team in this division by a country mile. Will they win the whole Pac-12, though? I'll talk about that when I preview the Pac-12 South on my next show, where we'll talk about USC, UCLA, and the rest, as they would say on Gilligan's Island. That does it for now. Catch you next time, everyone.